My friends, if you like these scary stories, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like it. It really helps me promote my content. Leave comments and share your impressions so that we can continue to explore dark secrets together. See you in the next videos. On a gloomy autumn evening, 3 friends gathered at an abandoned motel on the outskirts of a small town, where only the sound of the wind and the rustle of falling leaves broke the silence. Jake, Alex, and Sarah had long dreamed of adventure, and their path led to a border the locals called the Threshold of Shadows. According to legend, this border separated the familiar world from a mysterious reality, where time lost its shape and fear took on a tangible form. "Are you sure this is safe?" Sarah asked, as she looked at a map filled with handwritten notes and old photographs of derelict buildings. "Safe? Of course," Jake replied with a sly smile, clutching a flashlight that barely illuminated his determined face. "We're not just walking through a forest. We're crossing the boundary between worlds, and if we manage to step onto the other side, imagine the secrets that will be revealed." Alex, silently observing the conversation, merely nodded, sharing Jake's confidence, even though a hint of unease flickered in his eyes. The forest beyond the familiar roads was steeped in legends of missing people and mysterious creatures. This was exactly where our heroes were headed, driven by a thirst for adventure and a burning desire to uncover the truth. "Subscribe if you love adrenaline," the narrator's voice echoed at the beginning of the story, inviting viewers to dive into the realm of the unknown. And indeed, every step deeper into the forest became a trial for the soul. The forest greeted them with dense darkness and the rustling of trees, as if foretelling an impending storm. As the friends ventured further, the trail became increasingly lost among intertwined branches and roots. The atmosphere grew heavier, and a chill ran down their spines. "Have you heard that there used to be a path here, leading to an abandoned town?" Alex suddenly broke the silence, his voice trembling with both excitement and premonition. "A ghost town," Jake added. "They say something still dwells there, something that never leaves this forest. But those are just legends, right?" Sarah looked at her friends and whispered softly, "Sometimes legends become reality." With those words, the 3 friends pressed on, unaware that the forest had prepared a trial that would forever change their destinies. As twilight gave way to night, the forest began to come alive. Suddenly, ancient inscriptions appeared along their path, carved into the bark of trees, as if warning that going further was dangerous. Each inscription seemed to be a remnant of a forgotten history that time had tried to erase. "Look at this," Jake said as he stopped before a massive oak. His fingers traced the strange symbols etched deep into the bark. "Is it a warning or an incantation?" Sarah murmured, clutching a small notebook in which she recorded every detail. While surveying the surroundings, Alex noticed something unusual. "Guys, someone is coming. I hear footsteps, as if someone is following us." At that moment, a hoarse voice cut through the silence from deep within the forest. "Turn back before it's too late." The friends exchanged glances, unable to believe their ears. The voice was not human. It carried an ancient power that stirred their primal fears. Deciding that there was no time for discussion, they quickened their pace. Soon, the trail led them to a small clearing where fragments of old newspapers lay scattered on the ground, with headlines recounting mysterious disappearances and unexplained phenomena. One headline read, "Worlds collide. Dare to cross the threshold of darkness." This phrase struck a chord with them, reminding them of the legend they had heard since childhood. "Guys, we have to keep going," Jake declared decisively. "This story isn't ending here. We must uncover what lies beyond this border." A rustle echoed through the clearing, and in the darkness a shadow flickered, setting their hearts racing. Without a word exchanged, they pressed on, guided by a mixture of apprehension and an irresistible desire to solve the mystery. Night fell upon the forest, turning every sound into a sinister symphony. The friends decided to set up camp at the foot of an ancient tree that seemed to watch over them from ages past. The light of their campfire cast long, dancing shadows against the backdrop of darkness, creating an illusion that the trees themselves were coming alive. "I haven't slept since last night," Sarah murmured as she huddled closer to the fire, trying to warm herself. "But something here feels off." Jake tried to dispel the tension with a smile. "Relax, Sarah. It's just the forest. It's telling us its stories so we don't get bored." However, Alex couldn't hide his unease. "I think I hear someone whispering my name." The whispers floated through the air, and it seemed as if the very atmosphere was charged with a malevolent energy. Suddenly, a piercing scream erupted from behind the trees, making the friends' hearts skip a beat. "That's her!" Jake shouted, rising to his feet. "Sarah, where are you?" Sarah stood up, her eyes widening in terror as she saw something impossible. At the edge of the light, between the trees, stood a figure shrouded in darkness, seemingly not of this world. "Who are you?" she managed to stammer, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent, its icy gaze penetrating their very souls. Clenching his teeth, Alex stepped forward. "We don't belong here. We need to leave." But then the figure spoke in a soft, almost whispering tone. "You are already at the threshold from which no one returns." The friends exchanged glances, realizing that the situation was spiraling out of control. The night deepened, and their fear only intensified. Deciding that staying put was too dangerous, they hastily gathered their belongings and tried to leave the campsite. Yet the forest itself began to change, blocking their path to safety. At dawn, when twilight finally yielded to the pale light of a new day, the friends discovered that Sarah was missing. Her tent lay empty, and on the ground were only traces of footsteps leading deep into the forest. Panic gripped them as Jake and Alex began calling out her name, their voices echoing among the ancient trees. "Sarah, where are you?" Jake cried, his voice bouncing off the towering trees. "She was here," Alex said quietly, studying the footprints. "These tracks lead to an old path that seems to have been unused for decades." Sharing both fear and determination, the friends followed the faint footprints that drew them deeper into the heart of the forest. The path proved winding and confusing, as if nature itself was deliberately trying to mislead them. At one point, they heard a hushed conversation coming from behind a dense thicket, whispering, "Are you sure we can find her?" Nervously, "We have no choice. She's alone, and we must save her." Jake paused and listened, but soon the voices faded away. They pressed on until, suddenly, Alex spotted a glimmering object, partly buried in the dirt. It was a pendant with a photograph of a smiling girl who looked remarkably like Sarah. "Is this really hers?" Alex asked, clutching the pendant in his hand. Sarah always wore a pendant like this, Jake replied, his voice trembling with a mix of hope and fear. Little did they know that this object would become the key to unraveling the horrifying secret that shrouded the forest. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves, and every sound seemed to carry a warning. In the distance, they heard a strange noise, reminiscent of a child's laughter, quickly fading and leaving only a bitter aftertaste of pain. The traces led the friends to an old, dilapidated cottage, standing on the edge of the forest. Its peeling paint and broken windows painted a sinister picture, as if the house was steeped in memories of long-past suffering. Inside, it was dark and cold, the air thick with the musty scent of time. It seems something terrible happened here, Alex murmured softly as he cautiously opened the creaking door. Inside the cottage, there was little left, only remnants of dusty furniture and scattered papers filled with strange notes and diary entries. Among them, Jake found a yellowed diary with entries dated back to the 50s. "Listen, it talks about a ritual," he said, while flipping through the pages, about how people attempted to summon an unknown force to access other realms. But something went horribly wrong. In a dark corner, Sarah softly said, "This place. It reminds me of those scary stories my mother used to tell me when I was a child." At that moment, a voice sounded from behind them. "You should not have come here." The friends turned around and saw an old man dressed in tattered clothes, his eyes full of sorrow and exhaustion. His face was carved with deep wrinkles, and his voice echoed like a remnant of a bygone era. "My name is Edmund," he began, "and I have lived here for many years, guarding the secrets of this forest. You have awakened what was meant to remain forever silent." "Where is Sarah?" Jake demanded desperately. "She has already embarked on a path from which there is no return," Edmund said coldly. "This house is merely one of the portals between worlds. What you see is just a shadow of the past." Alex felt his blood run cold as fear gripped his heart. The old man handed them another document, covered in strange symbols and illustrations, depicting the crossing of worlds. He explained that the forest had absorbed the power of an ancient ritual, and that every crossing of this boundary could alter the fates of those who dared. "To save your friend," Edmund continued, "you must unravel the mystery of the ritual and understand which one of you is the conduit between worlds. But remember, the truth may be far more terrifying than your worst nightmares." As suddenly as he had appeared, Edmund vanished, leaving the friends with a torrent of questions and an overwhelming sense of impending danger. Consumed by a mix of despair and determination, Jake and Alex decided to follow the clues from the diary. They retraced their steps to the places Edmund had mentioned where answers might be found. The forest around them grew increasingly sinister. Every path, every rustle, every echo seemed deliberately aimed at confusing and repelling uninvited guests. "It feels like we're in a labyrinth," Alex remarked quietly, glancing around. "Paths converged and then diverge, as if someone is redrawing them as we move." Jake replied, trying to maintain his confidence. "We must believe that the answer is close." Sarah couldn't have just disappeared without a trace. Their journey led them to a small lake that mirrored the stars, as if it were a window into another world. On its shore, they discovered a circle of ancient stones covered in runes that glimmered in the faint light of the moon. "This place, it seems to hold memories of the past," Jake said, carefully touching the cold stone. Suddenly, footsteps were heard behind the stones. From the darkness emerged a figure cloaked in a long garment, its face hidden beneath a hood. The figure stopped and quietly stated, "You seek answers, but do you know that answers can change you forever?" The friends tensed, and a tense dialogue began. "Who are you?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. "I am the keeper of the boundary," the figure replied, its voice echoing like that of a forgotten age. "You have come here to cross the threshold between worlds. But remember, behind every answer lies a new mystery, and behind every truth, a price must be paid." The keeper pointed to the inscriptions on the stones, which told the story of an ancient ritual meant to unite two worlds, a ritual that was disrupted by greed and betrayal. He explained that Sarah had already become a part of that ritual, and her soul was now trapped between the worlds. "You must choose. Either continue the quest for truth, or leave the past behind forever," the keeper intoned, his voice growing distant. Jake and Alex exchanged glances, realizing that there was no time for hesitation. Their hearts pounded with anxiety, yet the choice was made. They had to save Sarah, even if it meant confronting the darkest forces of the forest. After leaving the lakeside, the forest around them seemed to awaken from a long slumber. The trees whispered ancient tales, and the shadow of the keeper remained unseen but ever present. Every step they took was accompanied by the sensation of being watched, and fear gradually transformed into determination. "We can't believe how tangled everything has become," Jake said, trying to collect his thoughts. "But I feel that we're close to the solution." Alex, clutching Sarah's pendant tightly, added, "This pendant is our only link to her. It must be the key to saving her." Suddenly, before them appeared an old bridge spanning a raging river, the forest imbuing the scene with an ominous atmosphere. The bridge was ancient and swayed in the wind, yet at its far end a faint light beckoned, suggesting that something capable of restoring their friend lay beyond. "Let's go," Jake declared with resolve. "The time to act is now." They stepped onto the bridge, each movement accompanied by creaking boards that seemed to forewarn of impending doom. Suddenly, halfway across, a loud crack echoed as one of the boards gave way under Alex's weight. He managed to grab onto the railing, though the moment felt like an eternity. "Hold on, Alex," Jake shouted, trying to comfort his friend. With great difficulty, Alex continued, and when they reached the other side, an unimaginable sight awaited them. Before them, a portal surrounded by a glowing aura had opened, and behind it, the silhouette of Sarah appeared, shrouded in mist and darkness. "Sarah!" Jake cried, rushing forward. But as they drew closer, Sarah's voice echoed, "Don't rush. You've already fallen into the trap." Sarah no longer looked the same. Her eyes were empty, and her voice sounded distant, as though she existed between worlds. She explained that the forest had consumed her soul and made her a conduit between dimensions. Now, in order to save her, the friends had to undergo a ritual that would change their lives forever. A heated dialogue ensued. "Sarah, we will save you," shouted Jake. "No," she replied in a hoarse tone. "My fate has already been sealed here. If you help me, I can restore a part of my soul, but the price will be high." Alex, clutching the pendant, whispered, "We're willing to pay any price as long as we can bring you back." The ritual was complex and perilous. The keeper of the boundary reappeared to explain that to complete the rite, a sacrifice had to be made, not of the material kind, but a spiritual one, to restore the balance between the worlds. The friends understood that they would have to confront their deepest fears and unlock hidden qualities within themselves they never knew existed. As the wind hushed and the river murmured, the ritual began. The forest, as if awakened by an ancient power, filled with a mystical light and shadows of the past. Surrounded by ancient symbols, Jacob, Alex, and Sarah recited incantations that seemed to rise from the very depths of the earth. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and before them appeared a vision unlike anything from this world, an embodiment of all the horrors and tragedies of ancient times. The apparition spoke in a voice filled with agony and ancient wisdom. "You have dared to disturb the peace, and now each of you must give a part of your soul. Only then can the lost be saved." Without hesitation, Jake stepped forward. "I will give everything if it means saving Sarah." Alex, his voice shaking, added, "We are friends, and we will face every trial together." Sarah, looking at her friends, whispered, "You are my hope. Do not let fear stop you." For a moment that seemed eternal. They felt their souls merge with the energy of the forest. The incantations sounded like an ancient song, and each note resonated deep within their hearts. There was a moment when everything seemed to stand still, and then came liberation. When the storm subsided, there they stood, changed, yet alive. Sarah returned to them with clear eyes and a warm smile. But the forest would not let them go easily. The shadow that had once threatened to consume them lingered deep within, a constant reminder that the boundary between worlds is thin and fragile. A new dawn brought not only light, but also the realization that the forest was no longer as it once seemed. The friends, worn down by their ordeal, understood that their trial had only just begun. They now had to choose: attempt to return to the ordinary world, or remain and delve into the new mysteries, perhaps even helping others trapped by this cursed place. "We saved Sarah, but at what cost?" Jake asked, sitting on a cold stone at the forest's edge. His voice was filled with weariness and bitterness. "Yes," Alex agreed, "we gave up a part of ourselves, and now that we're going back, we will never be the same." Sarah, looking at her friends, softly said, "Sometimes, to save what we hold dear, we must sacrifice a part of our soul. But I believe our friendship is stronger than any darkness." Deciding that their only way out was to return to civilization and share their story with the world, they set off along an old road. Yet the forest, as if alive, tried to hold them back, creating illusions of endless paths and twisting roads. Along the way, they encountered strange people, lonely wanderers who warned of the forest's curse, others who recounted tales of how the darkness stole the souls of those who dared cross the border. Each story added another layer to their own harrowing experience. At one roadside stop in a small town, as they conversed by the side of an old road, Alex asked, "Do you think anyone will believe us when we tell the story of how the forest took a part of our soul?" "People often reject the truth if it's too terrifying," Jake replied. "But our task is to convey it to those who aren't afraid to learn the truth." Driving through the town, they met a local journalist intrigued by mystical stories. His questions were direct, yet sincere. "Did you really cross a border that no one dares to speak of?" "Yes," Sarah answered, "and I can tell you, this forest hides secrets that can change the way we see the world." The friend's tale soon began to spread. People listened with bated breath, and video interviews and reenactments of the events amassed views on YouTube, without breaking any rules. making viewers believe that the boundaries between worlds might indeed exist. Despite their attempts to return to normal life, the friends realized that the forest had left an indelible mark on their souls. Every night, Jake awoke from bizarre dreams in which apparitions from the past confronted him, while Alex increasingly felt the cold grip of an unseen entity on his shoulder. Sarah became quiet and reflective, as though trying to process the immense price they had paid for her rescue. One evening, sitting in a cramped room against the backdrop of a fading sunset, the friends held a long conversation. "We must understand what this trial truly means," Jake said, staring out the window at the flickering city lights. "Maybe we haven't just survived the horrors of the forest. We may have become a part of it. Or perhaps," Alex added, "we need to find a way to rid ourselves of this darkness before it consumes us entirely." Sarah, lost in deep thought, said, "Sometimes fear is not the enemy, but a mirror reflecting our true nature. We have changed, and now our task is to use this experience to help others understand that darkness can be overcome by light." Thus began a new chapter in their lives, a struggle against inner demons, and an effort to comprehend how crossing the boundary between worlds had altered their fates. They started holding nightly gatherings, studying ancient texts, and seeking a way to reverse the forest's influence. Every discussion was filled with emotion, hope, and pain. At one of these meetings, Alex asked, "What if this darkness is not a punishment, but a gift? What if it has given us the ability to see what lies hidden from the ordinary eye?" Jake shook his head thoughtfully and replied, "A gift or a curse. It all depends on how we handle it. One thing is certain. We will never be the same again." Time passed, and their story increasingly resonated on local radio and social media. People began to gather to hear live accounts of the forest, the crossing of boundaries, and the price of truth. Their narrative conveyed not only fear and horror, but also a hope for redemption. Several months had passed since the friends returned from the forest. Their lives had been transformed beyond recognition. Jake began writing articles on mystical phenomena. Alex organized meetings for those who had experienced the unexplainable, and Sarah dedicated herself to studying ancient traditions and rituals. Despite all the trials, they found the strength to face their fears, using their experiences to help others. One day, gathered in a small cafe, they discussed what lay ahead. "Jake, we've been through the worst, yet I feel our story is only just beginning. The forest has given us a gift, the realization that the boundaries between worlds are thin and fleeting." Alex, "Yes, and now we must learn to live with this shadow. We can share our story so that it serves as both a warning and a source of strength for those who confront the unknown." Sarah, "I believe our experience will help many. We must continue to seek the truth, even if it is painful. Only through truth can we find the path to healing." That evening, to the soft sounds of jazz playing in the background, the friends decided to create a project, a kind of chronicle of boundary crossing, sharing stories of those who dared to peer beyond the veil of everyday life. Their project quickly gained popularity, and people from all over the country began sending in their own tales, confirming that the darkness hidden behind familiar boundaries did, indeed, exist. The project was named The New Boundary, and its mission was not only to explore the unexplainable, but also to unite people who had been caught in its snare. The friends held meetings where they shared their experiences, searched for answers in ancient legends, and learn to live with what once seemed like a nightmare. The story of the three friends who crossed the forbidden forest became more than just a tale. It became a symbol of courage, friendship, and the ability to overcome even the most harrowing trials. Every listener felt a spark of hope ignite within, realizing that even when darkness seems impenetrable, the light of determination and friendship will always find a way. Dear listener, if you have made it this far, know that our story is not mere fiction. It is an invitation to peer beyond the veil of the ordinary. Subscribe to our channel, hit like, and share this story so that more people learn that fear is not the end, but the beginning of a new journey. May your path be illuminated by the light of knowledge and courage, and may every step lead to discoveries that transform your life. The story of three friends who crossed the forbidden forest teaches us that beyond the confines of the ordinary world lie secrets that can change us forever. And though darkness may try to hide its secrets, only the light of our determination and friendship can pierce its veil.